All right, we're live. And then StreamYard is going to let me know when people start populating in the watching audience. So we'll see. So I guess we'll just continue to chit chat until we start. How is the weather where you are right now in Michigan?
Above freezing. It's been very nice today. Yeah, we get snow tonight, so clearly it's going to go back down. But
yeah. Isn't it amazing that when you get above freezing, it seems like a heat wave? Like you welcome 35 degrees. It's like,
yeah, short.
35. I can take my jacket off.
Yeah, it has been kind of like that, except of course then the bane of potholes, and Michigan is notorious for horrible roads.
Really? I thought it was just Pennsylvania. So Michigan too, huh?
Yeah, they have this odd law here which allows trucks with prodigious numbers of axles. I mean, they look like caterpillars. There'd be like, just rows and rows of wheels under semi-trailers, the whole underside, to carry incredibly heavy loads. And I think it just ruts the streets.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, yeah, driving around was kind of iffy today, just because it's worse. The streets, thank God, were dry. Most of the snow had melted away in the last couple of days. But when the potholes filled up with water and you can't see them, and there's a deep one, and then you bend your rim because you go boom.
Yeah. That happens. That definitely happens. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, well, let's see. It's populating quick here. We got John Hoover from Austin, Texas. We got Vitanomy, which is Rob Tucci from Toronto. Robert Hawkins is with us. He says, I'm in Southwest Michigan myself. Lots of lake effect snow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, all of our weather, most of our weather comes from the northwest down to the southeast. So all of the wind comes out of Canada. So it just picks up humidity off the Great Lakes. And so the western edge of Michigan gets dumped on. It's huge amounts of snow over there.
Wow. So we have two people from Austin, Texas. Murray Craig is from the UK. All right. So we are officially an international audience.
Good.
So, well, what's interesting is, Europe now, of course, is 5 to 6 hours ahead of us. So for those that join us from across the pond, it is, 11 or 12 at night. So bless you, my sons, for showing up so late at night.
Yeah, so where are they coming in from in Europe?
It looks like we got the UK.
Okay.
We got Savannah, Georgia, Austin, Arizona, another Georgia.
Good old Southern boys. Well, I'm a native Texan, so I'm all for the Texans and the Southerners. So.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
We have Portugal in the house as well. That's good.
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah, I ended up in the north because I married a Yankee. That happens.
Aha. It does happen. You're right.
Yes.
We have Seattle in the house, and it's just after 3 o'clock there in the afternoon. We got Belize. We have the United Arab Emirates.
Ahlan.
And Norway in the house. More UK, northeast of England, South Carolina. Yeah, it's building. It's nice. Good.
Very good.
Colorado.
Good. I wonder if the guy from Norway might have been at the European Men's Gathering. I wonder if we met. See if he says so.
Oh, I'll see if he says anything.
Oh, if I click on the comments link, I can actually see the list that you're reading. Wow.
Yes.
Someday I'll enter the 21st century, Okay. Yeah. There we are. Yeah. Robert, no, priests cannot marry. Roman Catholic priests remain celibate. The Orthodox Church will ordain married men, but once you're ordained, you cannot marry after that. So I was married before my ordination, and that's the answer to that one.
Good question, good answer. Definitely. Here, John Hoover from Austin, Texas has a good question. I have a question for tonight. Why have American socialist liberal left embraced atheism? Well, that's interesting.
Why they do. I've always just sort of thought of it as all sort of going together, all in one package. I think that there's a long history with socialism, sort of going back to to Marx, religion being the opiate of the people and whatnot.
Yeah.
Although atheism seems to be the opiate of socialists, just kind of back at them. It's not something that I've ever looked deeply into, so I don't have a real learned or informed response to that. But it does all seem to go together, doesn't it?
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, well, let's start a conversation. For 3 nights, I talked about the lives of 3 golden age bodybuilders.
Yeah, I saw
one
that.
was Reg Park, one was Chuck Sipes, and one was Chet Yorton. Reg Park, apparently so many of these guys inspired Arnold from what it looks like. These guys were just amazing guys. And in their bios, I read a little bit about like their routines, Chet Yorton doing sets of 22 and waiting 10 seconds in between sets.
Yeah, we know a little better nowadays, but
holy cow. Or the 5x5 routine.
Yeah, that's still around, or it's come back.
Yeah,
that's a good beginner's routine. Actually, you see a lot of people doing 5x5.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about bodybuilding. All right. Well, first of all, let me introduce you. This is Father Michael Butler in Livonia, Michigan. He is Orthodox priest in a Orthodox Christian church. Not for some of you, there's Orthodox Christians and there's Orthodox Jews. Father Butler is an Orthodox Christian priest with a cross hanging around his neck. And and you can tell in the background, there's some things that identify him as well as Orthodox. But you've been married for 30-something years, is that
36.
correct?
Yeah, 36.
36 years. You've been at your parish for how many years?
This one, 7.5. I've been ordained 26, nearly 27 years, and this assignment I've been here 7.5 years.
Yeah, you and I are the same age. We're 61 years old. You are also an amateur. You are also an amateur bodybuilder.
Yes, I am.
You compete in regional and state competitions? Is that
Mostly,
what it is?
Yeah, and I entered my first national level show last September at my coach's suggestion. I'm going to move my camera here for just a second. I want to show, if I go over here, my wall of fame. Those are all my contest posters and the bling, which I won at contests. So yeah, I've actually won. I didn't at the beginning, of course. I lost. My first show, I begged, please, just don't let me come in last. And I didn't. I was 5th out of 6. But I lost every show after that for about 3 years. And then I began to win. So coach decided I needed to go to nationals, where I also lost. I'm just not big enough for that ride yet. And so I'm taking this year off from competition to see if I can put on any more size. It just gets harder the older we get.
All right. Is it big enough or ripped enough?
In this case,
do you need the size?
I do need a few more pounds. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
And honestly, my conditioning was not entirely on point when I went to nationals. That's because nationals were in the beginning of September, and at the beginning of August, I went to Denmark to serve as a ritual elder for the European Men's Gathering. And while I was there, I contracted the virus. So
Okay.
oh yeah, I didn't have any symptoms, but I tested positive for COVID. So they
Yeah.
refused to allow me to fly home, and I had to sit in Denmark for an 11 days, quarantine. Thank God I had a friend to stay with, you know, on a lovely little village of Hostrup on the island of Fyn in rural Denmark. It was not the worst place to be. But still, I didn't have good control of my diet. And so I basically lost 3 weeks of contest prep dieting the month before my show. So I could have been a lot tighter. And actually, I can get pretty darn lean. I think the best I did was 5.5% body fat year before last. And
Oh my Lord, that's
I
wow. That
can.
is.
May I show off just a little? Here.
Yes. Yeah.
Not personally, but here I will. Let's see if we can do this. This is what I look like. I guess hard to see, with glare, but see, I clean up okay.
Yeah. 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 That represents a lot of work right there.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It does. Now, all right. So how tall are you, and how much do you weigh off season and on stage?
On stage, I am 5'10". Yeah, beast mode. Thank you. Yes. Priest to beast is my hashtag. So, not many men can claim that one. I am 5'10" tall, and on stage this last time I weighed 171 pounds. I currently weigh 191, and I'll probably top 200 in the next 2 or 3 months, because I'm not going to compete this year. This is a very long off season, and I need to get strong and I need to get a lot bigger. So,
Yeah.
I'm just going to eat. I just got to eat and continue to work heavy. And oddly, it's the same. I hear this. I experience it when I'm in contest prep, because when I lose weight and I'm dieting, I'm not nearly as strong as I am otherwise. And
Okay.
I was noting, now that I've kind of got a gut on me again and my abs have gone away, man, I can start moving some weight. And yeah, I know the young bucks here will please remember I am old enough to be your grandfather, when I say this. But I can remember when 275 was a single rep max for my squat. And I'm doing that for sets now. And it's not real pretty, but that's kind of a nice metric.
Yeah.
You can rep out what used to be your 1 rep max. So
Yeah.
I'm enjoying being strong. I have to be very careful. I don't know, George, if how your joints are, but I get really bad tendonitis in my knees. Shoulders are a little crinkly. My elbows are starting to go, and all of the hinges are, I've got trouble. So that's that's what
I've
holds
got
me back.
the shoulder. My elbows click.
Oh yeah.
Like when I'm doing kickbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And my shoulders, I'm just real careful with the shoulders. I would much rather do more reps than more weight.
Yeah. And as you see, see here in clothes, I'm not huge. I'm not gorilla huge. And wearing street clothes are like this. You probably wouldn't know unless I told you, that I lifted. Sometimes, yeah, the collar's got a little tight. My neck got thicker. Sometimes the shirt sleeves are a little tight. You can kind of see that, but for the most part, I look like an average, normally weighted adult male, which, in my line of work as an Orthodox priest, we have this image of the traditionally built priest who's kind of very stout and very heavy man with long beard and, all
right.
And I just can't go there. I just can't do that.
Yeah.
And, so there it is. But I do it. And people.
Do you wear fitted clothing?
Oh yeah, I wear fitted shirts whenever I can get them. Regrettably, you can't buy clergy shirts that are fitted. They come like these huge tents, I guess, because most priests are fat. And sometimes the arms are too tight. So that most priests have skinny arms, and they're real blousy here. So I'm always tucking in, both
Yeah.
sides and trying to fold them. And I just haven't paid the money to have a shirt seriously altered to where it fits well.
Yeah.
But
I have
for dress shirts, I wear fitted or athletic cut shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. They what do they say? Clothes make the man, but muscles make the clothes. And
Yeah.
when I made the move to fitted clothing, just everything changed. Costs a little bit more, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, I wish I could kind of, wear one of those nice long sleeve Henleys and make it look lumpy, but I really can't. And maybe that's not the most modest thing for a priest to say. So it's probably just
But,
as well, So I have to balance these things in my life.
that is a pretty cool look, though.
Mhm.
The lumpy Henley is definitely a good look.
Probably like our mutual acquaintance Derek, of More Plates, More Dates.
Right.
That guy makes a Henley look good.
Right.
I'll never do that. I'll never do
Right. That. Right. That's funny. I'm probably come summer, I'm going to do a video on the different kinds of T-shirts for different shaped men. I know, just buying something off the rack, the average Hanes pocket T-shirt or regular, just Joe T-shirt has way more fabric than what you and I would use. So I started. I like T-shirts made by Nautica. I like the Untuck It shirts. They are just out of this world. They fit so well. They just make me look bigger. And I'm not talking bigger as in fatter. They literally just work so well. And they're 2 inches shorter at the bottom. So you don't have these long tails. They literally stop just below your belt buckle. So they lengthen you. They're really good.
I made a note. Yeah.
Yeah, they're real good. And then there's another one called, I think I've been seeing these commercials on YouTube I think it's called the Classic Tee Company, TEE. And it shows guys that are a little chubby with a little bit of a belly wearing like a regular T-shirt, and they look like they got the dad bod. And then when they put on this classic tee, all of a sudden everything else just looks like it's in proportion. So it really is about what you wear.
Yes. There's truth in that.
Yeah.
And you're right. And even, those of us more traditionally built or who might be very thin, skinny men who, I have no experience of that whatsoever. But, I have seen guys change the way they dress, and the change in appearance is stunning. And, for those who maybe don't know quite why George is going on so much about appearance and dress, it's because this is part of our self-presentation as men. If we want to be respected, if we want people to like us, to hear what we have to say, we have to be appealing to them. And so if you wear clothes that don't fit, or if you're wearing colors that make you look jaundiced or yellow or something, you don't have good color, whatnot, if your clothing isn't right, people are going to have an automatic first impression of you that's going to be negative. They won't listen quite as carefully. They won't value you quite as much. And so really personal appearance does count for a lot. If you want to get ahead in the world, you have to pay attention to this stuff. And buying, a few T-shirts that really fit well is a real simple way, to upgrade your appearance that doesn't cost much. Yeah, and can be stylish and comfortable at the same time. You don't have to wear something stiff like this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, people size us up pretty darn quick if you think about it. You walk into a room of people. I don't care if it's walking into a restaurant, walking into a gym, walking into a networking opportunity, walking into a business meeting. People size you up in about 3 to 6 seconds.
Yeah. So, dress, also posture. I gave a talk one time, and it just a side comment. We went way off, and into the weeds on some side comment. But I was talking about, having good posture. And I said, put your shoulder blades in your back pockets. And that was like the only line anybody remembered from the whole talk, was to put your shoulder blades in your back pockets. But I saw everybody, all the men in there, sit up straight and try that. Okay. The image fit. Now I understand what they mean, about keeping your chest up and all. Just put your shoulder blades in your back pockets and it works.
Yeah. I think what happens is, if a group of men are just standing around talking, let's just say a circle of men are just sitting around talking with each other, the guy that has the best posture tends to have a positive effect on everyone else. All you got to do is glance at that one person, and then I think unconsciously you raise the bar, not only for how you look, but also you raise the bar for conversation. Like, for instance, people that speak better tend to raise the bar for conversation in a group than they do it more than those who don't. If you have a good posture, men seem to stand a little taller when they're around you, unconsciously.
Yeah, they do. It's just one of those things of having, it probably is a part of establishing frame. It is a way of asserting yourself, and you'll see, if you straighten up your own posture, see who else straightens up theirs around you, see who's paying attention, and who you're influencing in the group. It's a simple exercise to do.
That is so true. I find in networking situations, kind of like cocktail hour kind of things, I find that, especially if there's any business involved, anyone trying to win over somebody for business, men of all heights seem to stand taller, and height doesn't really matter as much as, like, I had a guy on, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Ken Peterson. I don't know, Ken, if you're in the audience tonight. He's not the tallest guy. He's not the tallest guy in the room, but you wouldn't know that if you're in the room with him. The only thing you think is, there's a confident guy with a great posture. You don't think, oh, he's tall, or the opposite, oh, he's short. You just look at him and say, there's a guy with a great posture. There's a guy who's confident.
Yeah. And learning to do that, and to get so good at it that you don't even know you're doing it, or that you don't think about it, is, unconscious competence at that, I think is what they call it.
That's a great word. Great phrase. Unconscious competence.
Yeah, that's one of those Eisenhower matrices that you have, where you have competence and consciousness. So someone who's unconsciously incompetent is the person, is the dweeb who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He just doesn't, just clueless. But we move kind of, if you draw it out, you can figure it out, where we move to we're conscious that we're incompetent. Okay, figured out that we got to do something right here. And then you become consciously competent, where you have to act. This is where a lot of LARPing, we call it LARPing nowadays, live action role play. We're pretending the role, we're practicing it, and then we move to unconscious competence, where it's just part of our being, and we just do it automatically without thought. But unconscious competence, it's a thing.
I like that. All right, so I told someone the other day that my glory years, when it came to weightlifting and bodybuilding and stuff, was from about 14, 15 years old, where I was painfully thin, painfully skinny. And then by the time I was 17, 18 years old, honest to God, that was like before you went to a party, before you walked in the door at a party, you just like did tons of push-ups to make sure that you're kind of pumped up.
Yeah.
But I will never forget, just being at 18 years old, just being an insane physical specimen. And it came so easy. And I didn't need a lot of sleep. And I could eat half a pizza and drink 6 beers.
Oh, you were totally loathsome when you were young.
But of course, that era came to an end when, the weight started packing on in other places other than biceps, chest, and shoulders.
Yeah.
And then, for lack of a better term, I ended up having what I call scholar body, and then I went to dad bod, and then I went to, holy crap, I'm getting old, and I have high blood pressure, and the doc says I better lose weight or I'm going to have a stroke bod. And then that started happening, and that's when I started getting on the right track. Now, my origin story starts with me being skinny, painfully skinny. Does your origin story start with you being skinny or fat or skinny fat, or tell us about it?
No, I was the fat kid.
Okay.
Actually, I think looking back, I was normally weighted when I was young. Sort of the first major defining event of my life was I lost my dad to an industrial accident right after I turned 8 years old. And I got depressed after that, and I can see by my elementary school pictures and pictures from my childhood, I put on a lot of weight after that. So I was always the fat kid. I was always uncoordinated too. I almost failed PE in the second grade because I couldn't jump a rope. Now that's pretty damn miserable, but there I was. I had to buy a jump rope and practice at home. But I was always picked last in school sports, always. To this day, I hate all team sports. It's just been a lifelong thing. I don't care about them at all because I was never good at it, and I'm still not good at it because I'm still not that coordinated and all. But yeah, so I was the fat kid. I leaned out a little bit in high school. I think I lost about 40 pounds in high school, and that sort of was the beginning of sort of the cat.
I was going to say we need an exorcist here.
Yeah, and I can do that, but and someone raised a question. We'll come back to the question about exorcisms later. I'm happy to answer that. But sort of my social blossoming, I sort of came out of my shell, out of my depression in high school, began making a lot more friends and all. But the weight eventually sort of came back on. The college 15, the freshman 15, that I had that and all. And so I was sort of always overweight, a little pudgy and all. I gained weight when my wife was pregnant with both of my sons. It was a little up and down and up and down. And finally, it wasn't until I was 53, and I had always wanted to be a competitive bodybuilder ever since I saw Charles Atlas ads in the back of comic books. I know that dates us, but that's okay. That was a big thing for me. And I wanted to look like that. That was beautiful. And I didn't know men could do that. And I thought there is an epitome, a kind of masculine perfection and an aesthetics that I found really attractive. And I wanted that for myself. And I didn't do anything about it because I was embarrassed. I didn't pursue it. I always had the desire, but didn't do much. A few times I would go into gyms and was intimidated by everybody who was in there. And, until I kind of hit mid-age and I finally got over being intimidated by other guys. But I finally decided when I was 53, I said I wanted to get in shape when I was 20, 30, 40, and 50. And I have still not done it. I want to regret something else when I'm 60, and it ain't going to be this.
Yeah.
And so I told my wife, look, I'm going to do something about my weight. I want to get into shape. And I found one of those 12-week transformation challenges, online gurus, and all that. I said, I'm going to spend the money for this and see what happens. And I learned about diet. I thought I was eating close enough to correct. I was not. I was completely deceived on my diet. I was not eating nearly enough protein. And when I learned to correct my diet, the fat started coming off, the muscles started going on. I started to get stronger. And I said to myself, I wonder how far I can take this. So I said, I'll do a contest. And, by this time, men's physique, which you can do in board shorts, had become a thing. And so I thought,
yeah,
I could do that. I think I could do that. And so I said, who around here does contest prep? And one man's name came up everywhere. So I found him. He's our age. And he actually runs most of the NPC amateur bodybuilding shows in the state of Michigan. He himself competed 140 times. He had dropped out of college and moved to Southern California and slept under the Santa Monica Bridge because he wanted to work out with Arnold and Franco back in the day. I mean, he actually did that, you know, and
Nice.
knew Vince Garanda when he ran Gold's Gym out there, and had great stories of the old timers. And this guy, Ramey, said to me, I went and visited him. I said, I kind of like to do this, but you see, I'm old and I've never done anything like this. And he said, I can't guarantee you'll win, but I can guarantee that you will look like you belong on stage. And I said, that's fair enough. I'm in. And so we picked the very last.
Wait, give me that last line again.
Yeah.
I can make you look like what?
Like you belong on stage.
Oh, how interesting. I've never heard it put that way before.
Okay. Yeah. And that was it. I would look like a competitor. And
Okay.
we had the last possible show that year was in November. We had about 10 weeks at this point. And I did everything he said, and I was stunned at the transformation. That year, over the course of 10 months, ultimately, I lost 40 pounds. I lost 8 inches off my waist. I went from a 40-inch waist to a 32. I went from 23% body fat to 8. I saw my abs for the first time in my life, and I came in 5th out of 6th at my first show. So I didn't come in last. And then
That's
I got
huge.
hooked.
And you were in your 50s.
I was 53. I started at 53. So, you young bucks, what's your damned excuse? You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, and not just on that, you know, and I don't say that to rub your nose in things. I say you can do whatever you want to. And please, please, honest to God, go and do it. Because like I was talking about regret earlier, failure is bitter, but regret is 10 times worse. And I regret that I had not started this fitness journey decades ago. It would have substantially changed my life. And I even saw it even at the beginning of it when I had lost about 20 pounds. I don't know quite what happened, but I lost about 20 pounds. And all of the women in my congregation quit giving me so much shit. And the men started giving me a lot more respect. And I don't think it's because of the physical change. I think it was because of the mental change, the self-confidence. I'm doing what I said I would do. I'm fulfilling my dream. I'm living what I want to live. I'm doing it the way that I want to do. I am succeeding, and I can see the change. And that changed everything about my posture, my self-presentation, and my confidence went through the roof. And I think that's what they were responding to.
Wow.
And
wow.
It was, had I known that, I might have saved myself decades of grief, you know, just in dealing with other people. But that was the first tangible benefit of me getting into shape.
That's what I was going to ask you next. You just answered it. Was what's the first thing that happens after you get into shape is you notice people's reactions to you change.
Yes. Yes, they do. And it's still funny. I still get this because I belong to a very large gym, and there's always new people. And if I don't get it in the morning, I get the after school crowd and all, and they're kind of fun. But it's scarcely a week goes by that some young buck won't come up to me and say, pardon me, sir. I know where the conversation is going. It always starts that way. Pardon me, sir. Yeah, I'm old enough to be your grandpa. Shut up about it. Yeah, pardon me, sir, but could I ask how old you are? Yeah, I'm 61. 61. Wow. And you look better than my dad. I hope I look like you someday, you know, when I grow up. I said, well, keep at it, kid, and maybe you will. No, but it's true. I do inspire other people. I know that. There are 2 men, one in my congregation, one outside my congregation, who each lost over 100 pounds because of the witness I gave from having gotten in shape myself. And I have one 73-year-old grandmother in my parish who began going to the gym and started to work out to help her health. She had, like you, high blood pressure and some other issues. and she started working out, and it significantly improved her health because her priest did the same thing. So, you never know how you're going to affect people's lives, and it's a beautiful thing when you can help them improve their lives in some way or another.
So our aesthetic is almost like a witness, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and I forget. There's a really nice quote. Every so often it pops up on Instagram or somewhere that a well-built body is not something you can buy. It's not something you can fake. It's not something you can um, pretend to. It is a witness to hard work, dedication, self-confidence, self-worth, and all that kind of things. And I think that's true. And again, if let's just kind of be consistent. People always ask, how is it you, a priest, can be a bodybuilder? Isn't that all vanity and all? And there is a danger in vanity to it, I freely admit. And when I'm in contest prep, I really like seeing my abs first thing in the morning when I go in the bathroom. That's like Christmas every day. I won't pretend it's not so. I love it. I really do. But the way I kind of look at it is like, I push myself spiritually. I push myself intellectually and academically. I try to push myself, in self-improvement in every way. And I love to push myself physically. And I came late in life to learning to push myself physically. But when I'm lifting well and eating right according to what I need to do in order to support my workout regime, I feel great. And it translates into how I interact with everybody else, and the rest of my life prospers as well. Because as you will probably testify, George, how you do anything is how you do
everything. You do all things. Yeah.
That's right. So if you can get yourself together in the gym, I think I said this on your last show and someone commented, discipline is fungible. If you can be disciplined in one area of your life, you can be disciplined in every area of your life. And if you can clean up one part of your life, you can clean it all up. It may take steps, it may take you a while, but you can do it. And eventually, I think your mind, your attitude, your self-worth, your physical appearance, your physique, everything is going to be consistent. I'm not real sure. I'm sure there are people with horrible physiques who never do any kind of exercise and have unspeakably bad diets, who are very successful in other aspects of life. But you always look at that and say, there's something incongruent here. You would think that guy would take better care of himself, making that kind of money or having that kind of power, or something like that. It always seems inconsistent. So I think that the consistency goes a long way. And there's also something called the halo effect, which has been studied by psychologists. So for you young men who are looking to get ahead in life, the halo effect says that good-looking people are presumed to be more intelligent, nicer, more successful, and richer than they really are. And if all you have to do, like we were talking earlier, if all it takes is a fitted shirt, a decent haircut, and to take care of your skin to look better, people are going to assume, you're better in every aspect of your life as well. And maybe that opens a door. Maybe that gets you the job that you interviewed for. Maybe that gets you the position at the company, or something like that. If it's a cheap fix, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I think discipline is always greater than motivation. For instance, when I was doing my walks, there are times when I don't want to walk, and when I walk, I don't merely stroll. I walk at a pace where I'm huffing and puffing a little bit, okay, but I can still talk. And then to me, I was told many years ago that I need to walk just fast enough where my speech is impaired just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not going so fast where I can't talk. Like, obviously you can't talk while you're running. You can't really, but I like going at such a speed where I can just barely talk. But I noticed me doing that on a regular basis. There were days when I do not. Well, John Hoover from Austin, Texas says this: motivation opens the door, but discipline keeps you in the room. Yeah, absolutely. So there's days where I know I'm not going to want to go to the gym. I just, right? How about you? Do you always, now you're in the gym a lot. Do you always want to go to the gym? Or is there ever a day where you say, I don't want to do this?
Honestly, for me, I really love it. And I'm so motivated to win my pro card next year that really I kind of always want to go. The only thing that holds me back is my current workouts. I'm lifting really very heavy. And day one of my week, I've got heavy squats, bench press, and deadlifts. My
wow.
my current coach is kind of a national powerlifting champion, and he just loves
Yeah.
it.
He's going to put, that's going to put the weight on you.
Yeah, but I am honestly scared of that workout. So it's not that I don't want to go, it's that I'm afraid to go do that workout.
Yeah.
And which shows it's doing, and this is very carefully graduated progressive work, based on percentages and everything. So it is well within my measure. I can finish the workouts, I can complete the sets and the reps. I know I can do it, but it takes a hell of a lot. And I do not look forward to it because it knocks the stuffing out of me. But for the rest, yeah, I basically plan to go 7 days a week, and maybe 1 day a week life gets in the way, or scheduling for meeting people, or like yesterday I was able to get in only a little bit of a walk because I had to do a funeral, which took up most of the day. So life happens, and I can't always get 7 days, but if I plan 7, I'll usually get 5 or 6.
Here's a question for you. If when you decided to do this, a lot of people in the men's community call this the 1,000-foot toe rope. Rather than moaning and groaning about your wife or your girlfriend, and maybe she should work out, or maybe diet more or something like that. I've heard people say, just start going to the gym yourself. And it's like picture a ship with a 1,000-foot tow rope. The first ship makes a turn, okay? And the second ship is eventually going to make a turn, but because of the 1,000-foot tow rope, that turn of the second ship isn't going to happen until long after the first ship has changed its course. Yeah. So I have found that in my life, when I start working on myself with those that are closest to me, it eventually has an effect on them. I also know a guy that started getting into shape, and his wife said, don't get in too good of shape because I don't want you to start being attractive to other women. And I was like, what? I'm like, she actually told you that? So
that's an honest woman.
Tell me about your scenario, if that's not too personal.
My scenario is quite a bit different because all of the incentive structure is different. I have heard of the analogy of the 1,000-foot rope. Other word for that is, it will come to me. It will come to me. But the my incentive structure is different. Being a priest, I'm not allowed to divorce or to remarry should my wife die, because for an Orthodox priest, my marriage is supposed to be follow the type of Christ who marries his bride, the church, and God doesn't go whoring after other women. He stays faithful to his church. So my wife and I are together, and we're the only ones we'll ever have. And so, my wife has absolutely no fear of me going after other women because I can't have them, and she's the only one I'll ever get. So for me, it's not much of an issue. And thank God we're happy, and it's all good that way. But she does get a little jealous when other women check me out if we're out somewhere. Yeah,
Okay.
that has happened a couple of times, which is really very cute because she'll grab hold of my arm, which she doesn't usually do, and I know,
Yeah.
okay, that one got under her skin, So yes, and we have, as you know, we were in Cancun for 10 days at the
Yes.
beginning of December. So even though I was like 3 months out from contest, I still was in single digit body fat, and I was still looking pretty darn good out by the pool.
Yeah.
Uh,
You were pretty jacked from those
yeah,
pictures. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, she notices, and honestly, around about 1,000 foot rope. Well, I've been working out for years. She started going to the community center. They have a senior program. My wife is a few years older than I am, and she's at least started walking and taking a couple of the classes there. But she's been retired for a year, and she's finally gotten completely bored with sitting at home. So this was an
Yeah.
excuse to get out of the house. And
Yeah.
there's no way in hell she's going to come to the same gym that I go to. That ain't happening. Just fine.
Yeah.
Let her go do her thing, find her place, and
Yeah.
it's all good. So,
That's great.
it's sweet. It's nice to see. So I'm just very encouraging and complimentary, as I like to see it happen.
Complimentary. That's good. I like that. That's a great word, and it's a great concept. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this. What about the all right, so you're 190 something right now.
Yeah.
In order for you to get back on stage again, you're not going to go back down to 171, are you?
Oh, God forbid. I hope I don't have to drop down below about 180 or 175. Yeah, I hope to put on, it's very hard, at our age to put on any muscle, but I'm hoping to do that. And then to put on some muscle and then to maintain weight for, a little while before I have to cut, and then take a very slow cut so I can retain as much as I can. And yeah, it's a delicate process, and any diet you're going to lose some muscle.
Yeah.
And again, 3 weeks in Denmark without solid exercise routine, without control of my diet, it kind of messed things up there toward the end. I mean, it's sort of one of those 80-20 rules, or what you say, it takes so much effort to get to 80% of your potential. It takes prodigiously more effort to get from 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
And then to get from 90 to 100% takes it's a part-time job. And I watch everything I eat. I write everything down. I'm twice a day cardio, posing practice, workouts, and all of that. And I'm so damn tired I fall asleep if I sit down on the couch.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really quite difficult, which is why I only compete in late summer and fall, because my life slows down a lot in the summertime. So
Ah.
it doesn't negatively affect my ministry or my work nearly so much.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't do it during Great Lent or Easter season or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's impossible, just impossible. So, I find the ways of fitting everything in the way in the best way that I can, and that's it. That's what I have to do.
Yeah. I know this morning I stepped on the scale and I was 195.5, and that's 5.5 pounds more than I was the last time you and I did a stream together. I put on 5 pounds during this cold weather, and I think
My,
that's just probably lack of activity
mm,
and eating more comfort food. Just you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
uh,
I know. I, I,
but
I, I
my goal is to. I would love to be somewhere between 175 and 180. That would be ideal. That would make me very happy. To be about 180 would be pretty cool, because we're about the same height. So I think that's a
well,
great weight.
yeah,
Uh,
anything like about 12% body fat is easily maintainable. I mean, for those of us who aren't naturally skinny, single digit body fat's miserable, and it's just not worth it. You feel awful. You're always hungry, slightly edgy. Um, and so in about 12 to 15% is, I think, average body fat for an adult male.
Yeah.
So, something that's just on the lower end of that, you begin to see a bit of abs and all. And yeah, you probably look pretty good and full. And that's one thing a lot of people talk about. Just I know a lot of guys who don't like to diet down too much because they say they'd rather look good in a shirt. How often are we shirtless?
Right.
Not that often, really. So no one's
Right.
really going to see your obliques or your serratus or your abs or anything like that. But if you could fill out a shirt without looking fat, that's not a bad look. And that's how we appear 95% of the time. So for a lot of guys, that's really, and it's doable, it's attainable
Yes.
without, superhuman effort.
Yeah. Now, as I was going through the lives of the three golden age bodybuilders, each of them had a certain way of doing things. There is a Chuck Sipes way of working out. There's a Chet Yorton way of working out. Is there a Michael Butler method?
Yeah, it's what I paid for. Honestly, I sort of my coach, my main coach, my contest prep coach, and my buddy is very old school. So for him, it's largely 5 exercises for compound lifts. Typical bro split. Chest and tries, back and bis, legs, that sort of thing, or push pull legs. Um, 5 major exercises for compound lifts, 8 to 12 reps, and then 3 exercises for arms, triceps or biceps or calves or whatnot. And you can make good progress on that. I'm working with someone now specifically on off season. I'm on a strength building cycle right now so that I can get my strength up so that I can do increased volume work next. And everything is really tightly put together. I'm enjoying the workouts. I really am. I'm probably, if I worked at a single rep max now, I'm probably about the strongest I've ever been in my life, or close to it. And
Amazing. At
it is
61, you're at
at
the
61.
strongest you've been in your
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah. I think so. And apart, if I could get over the bad joints, I'd probably, I could realize that a little more.
Yeah,
But it feels really good. And so probably in the next couple of months, I'm going to hit personal records on strength again in
that's
deadlifts and squats and bench. Yeah, I could probably hit a PR in bench and deadlifts today, but I ain't going to try.
yeah, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Now, the golden age bodybuilders, the three, these guys were bench pressing 500 pounds and up. And how in the world, if you're bench pressing 500 pounds, it's not like you can just go to some bro, you know, who's a couple squat racks down for you and say, hey, man, can you spot me on this? How do you get somebody to spot you when you're benching 500? You need 3 guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's never a problem with me. I mean, my maximum bench, I think, was 245, which is not a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of the younger guys. That's easy peasy stuff. They're probably benching 3 plates, and God bless you. I see some younger guys at my gym who are doing that. It's impressive. I love to see it. I fear for their joints, and they'll have new knees and new shoulders and all, by the time they're 35 or 40. I mean, there is a price to be paid for doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's pretty
Right.
wild.
Yeah,
So, all right. So you have a coach.
I have a coach.
All right. Now you seem to be fairly established. You're an established guy who has a coach.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
do you need a coach?
Because I don't know everything. And I realize that there is expertise out there and I want to grow and I don't want to have to do all the primary research myself. So for my health, I go to a coach. I call him a doctor. For my workouts, I have specifically a workout coach designing off-season growth workouts for me right now. I want to turn my men's work into a part-time job. that I can do full time when I retire from full-time parish ministry, which I hope will be in about 4 years. And come on, my wife keeps the checkbook. I don't do very much with finances myself. So how to set up a business, how to build social media presence, how to start a blog, I'm going to end up writing a book, I think is what's going to happen. And then how to offer upgrades off the book so I can do seminars and talks and stuff like that and continue to grow that. I don't know how to start. And so I asked for help on that, and I find the help comes. In fact, just this week, if I can crow just a moment, a friend of mine who is a budding entrepreneur. He made some very good investments several years ago and has done very well for himself. Recently hired one of the top entrepreneurial coaches, mentors that's out there. I think he paid $100,000 for a coaching program.
Yeah.
And he offered to give me all of the content he is learning for free because my friend wants to do the same kind of work himself. And as you know, the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. So, here's little me, just starting out. You're maybe my 10th podcast, video interview or podcast appearance, maybe half a dozen little posts on Instagram. This is how the very beginning of me starting out. But I've got someone who's willing to invest in me a little bit and see to it that I have a major publication and probably a speaking career for as long as I want it for the rest of my life. And so wherever you can find help, never be afraid to ask for help. And if you can share your dreams with, I don't share them with everybody, but you find good groups of people to talk about. They say, I know somebody who knows about that, or I got someone who can help with that. And oddly enough, God provides, the universe provides, synchronicity happens, however you care to explain it. If you're open for it, very often you find what you're looking for and help appears. Sort of like
Yes.
all the old legends and the fairy tales and the stories. Dorothy ends up in the land of Oz, and she ends up with the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. Luke Skywalker, starts on his adventure and ends up with a couple of droids. The strange companions always show up. So
yeah.
So
what does it take to coach Michael Butler?
Great patience.
Okay.
No, I don't. For the entrepreneurial thing, just a little bit of time. I'm pretty much a self-starter at this point, and I'm very motivated. Again, I want to continue to do men's work, to have conversations like this, not specifically about bodybuilding, but I know we're going to talk about other things yet. I think on my last call, I'm really interested in helping men become the best they can be. And that for me, that's a spiritual component, it's an intellectual, mental component, it's an emotional one, it's a physical one. And so it's a whole package kind of thing. But let's talk about that, let's do it. And I've studied men's work for 30 years. I have my fingers in a lot of pies in sort of the manosphere, I guess, though I'm coming to appreciate the term the Renaissance of men a little better. And I think
I like to say the men's development arena. That's what I say.
Okay.
That's kind of a phrase.
Men's development arena works, but I think if you know Will, I'm going to embarrass myself now.
I do know.
Okay, yeah, you do know him. Yeah, because he will identify, that the men's development movement is only part of men's work now, because it doesn't fully embrace sort of the inner work guys, who are doing a little more spiritual, a little more of the new agey stuff, the guys who are, the mythopoeic guys who are still sitting in the woods drumming, which is incredible fun, by the way, if you've never done that. So I'm sort of in the same group with you, the sort of the men's development work. But there is a whole other school of thought, at least one other school of thought, not counting just the, the therapists and the doctors out there who are dealing with men with psychological and emotional traumas, PTSD, returning vets, who have got serious problems, and who are doing yeoman's work with that. So there are a lot of different slices to the
Yeah.
manosphere pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's great.
anyway, this is the kind of stuff I want to do. So if I'm going to do this, and I want to do this for the rest of my life, and in a very few years, less than 5 years, I hope to have the freedom from my full-time job to devote to it, then I need to start laying the groundwork now, so that when I have my time, I've got contacts, people know my name, I've got some street cred, I have some social cred, some social standing on social media and all of that, so that when I begin to produce more of my own content, it gets out there and it can do some good. It's really what I want. So
How does being in bodybuilding help a young man who might be having problems attracting a woman? So many guys have turned to porn. They've accepted the fact that they're incels, or whatever word they want to give themselves, MGTOW or something like that.
Yeah, never give up on yourselves.
Never give up on yourself.
Never give up on yourselves. And I will tell you this, like I was saying earlier, the first lagging indicator, that's the term I was looking for. 1,000-foot rope is lagging indicator. Okay.
Lagging indicator.
Yeah. You start working out, no one's going to know for probably 12 weeks. All right. It's typical. And I kind of see this when I start a contest prep and I start cutting and dieting down. I don't see anything for the first 4 weeks. My wife doesn't see anything in the first 8 weeks. Nobody else comments for the first 12 weeks. And then everybody starts noticing. And so sometimes we have to do a lot of work on ourselves quietly and just put in the grind before we begin to see the fruits or the result of it. And like I was saying earlier, when I started losing weight, the first thing I noticed was that women quit giving me so much shit and men gave me more respect. The purpose of working out is not just to build big muscles. It's to teach you how to delay gratification. It's to teach you how to stick to a program and to work it. Even when you don't feel like getting up and going to the gym, you get your ass out of bed and you go to the gym. It's to teach you to work through pain and discomfort. It's to teach you humility, that you don't know what you're doing and be willing to ask for help, and to go into an alien environment and be willing to stick with it, even though you might be embarrassed by what you're gym intimidated. I get it. I was too for a long time. Is to teach you those sorts of things first. So the purpose of working out is primarily mental. And when you can begin to develop that self-confidence, my God, look at me. I'm starting to look okay. I'm not the little bag of bones that I had been since I was a kid. Gosh, she looks kind of sweet. Self-confidence just was, and that's what becomes attractive. That's what's attractive to women. It's also attractive to other men, and not in a homoerotic way. Men respect men who respect themselves.
Yeah, it's a respect.
When you carry yourself well and you've got bearing and you know who you are and yourself and you're centered, it shows. And men respect that and they respond to it. And women respect it and they respond to it as well. So your first fruits of working out are going to be mental and attitudinal. And eventually the muscle will come. And then you'll just look totally hot too. And God bless. There's no stopping you after that. Right. But you got to do the mental piece, because I've known meatheads in the gym, who have zero personality, and wouldn't know what to do with a woman if she plopped herself in his lap. There are sometimes guys who are just simply clueless, or socially maladroit. I get that. But really, if you're really kind of paying attention to yourself, if we're nowhere on the spectrum and that kind of stuff, then by and large, I think men do okay, and they begin with the self-confidence. And like I say, no one else will see it. You'll be the only one who knows, but because it's your secret, you'll carry it, and you'll know the secret, and the rest of the world doesn't. But they'll wonder why you're smirking at them.
Yeah,
It'll be okay. It will be okay. Yeah.
that's great. That's great. All right. Well, now we're at a juncture. We're going to make a pivot, but to reintroduce you to people who were not here at the beginning of this hour, because we've been talking for an hour. I'm speaking with Father Michael Butler. He's an Orthodox priest in Michigan. He is also an amateur bodybuilder, and we're talking about his personal bodybuilding experience. And that just kind of morphed into how doing bodybuilding, how that discipline spills over into other areas of your life. And that's what we've been talking about. Now here's the time that we kind of shift gears. I deal with a lot of people who deal with loss, death, dying, and such. And one of my papers that I wrote in graduate school was on survivors of suicide. And a lot of people don't realize that phrase. It's not about a person who attempted suicide and then lived. It's about the people who are left living after a loved one commits suicide. And that led into a lot of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and such, and the stages of grieving and such. And I was speaking with a young man who lost one of his best friends in the past week. And I taught him the power of symbolism and the power of commemoration. And I said, when you get together with your friends, learn the art of giving a toast. And for a young man who's never done that, learn how to get everyone to be quiet and to raise a glass in memory of your friend that passed away and say something good about him. Go around the table and everyone say one good thing, and then you all toast and clink glasses, you take your sips. And I said, just that alone will relieve some of the grief. Now, you're the pastor of a church. You've seen them when they're, what do they say? When they're hatched, matched, and dispatched.
Yes. Hatched, hitched, and
see it.
Yes. When you sprinkle them with water, sprinkle them with rice, and sprinkle them with dirt. Yeah. There are different ways of saying it. Yes. So the pivot is this. Everyone here has either lost somebody or will lose somebody. Talk to us about death and how to deal with it. Symbolism, commemoration, living with uncertainty, questions that will never be answered. Talk to us. Yeah. Actually, thank you for that. As I said toward the beginning of our time here, I just performed a 5th funeral in the last 2 months. In my line of work, I very rarely bury strangers. I only bury friends. And I knew and loved 4 out of the 5 that died. And I am still, because I'm the priest, I have to be strong for everybody else. I have to hold the space. I have to maintain the structure firmly so that everybody else around can fall apart and be safe with that. So I have to hold it. And no one's really been holding it for me. So I'm a little raw about grief right now. I see in the comments, in addition to losing my father to an industrial accident when I was 8 years old, I turned, I guess, to faith afterwards as a consolation. My sister started smoking pot at 12. By 16, she was an alcoholic and suicidal and very nearly succeeded in taking her life. She was subsequently a heroin and cocaine addict. I know she was also a sex addict, and she was dead by violence at 23. I thought for years she had killed herself. In talking to old family members, no one actually except me ever believed that. She was selling drugs for a Mexican gang and was probably murdered by the gang. Probably for snorting up too much of the profits. Oh, that's no joy. No, it is no joy. And so I've lived with through a lot of that myself. And I think Daryl DeBasil, whom I buried yesterday, is the 90th person I have buried in my ministry. So I've seen a lot of death. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the things that seem to help after initial shock begins to wear off. And like some in the comments, uh, yeah, uncontrollable rage at someone trying to commit suicide. I know the feeling. What a fucking waste to do that. And that was the attitude I had toward my sister. What a miserable waste. She had so much to offer, so much to live for. Why the hell? You know, it still comes out now. I still work through it. It's been, God, 40 years plus,
Mm.
nearly 40 years. I was 23. I don't want to do the math right now. 37, 38 years. Um, what works very well is precisely the kind of thing that George gave an illustration of, or an example of, an offering a toast. And what that is, it's ritual. And the importance of ritual in dealing with death, in dealing with things for which we have no words, for which we cannot fully express ourselves emotionally or physically. Yeah, a good cry is always a good thing, to do. If you can have a good cry, that's very healing. Have several. If the person is close, it's okay. You have my blessing and my permission to have several good cries. Um, but what do we do after that? There's such a feeling of helplessness,
Mm-hmm.
um, that we feel a need to do something. And this is why there are public funerals. And I always encourage open casket funerals. And this is an Orthodox practice, wherever possible. Open caskets helps to see the body, it helps for closure. And in Orthodox practice, at the end of the funeral, we don't just pass by, we give a final kiss to the dead, and we kiss the corpse. And I tell you what, pressing your lips to a cold forehead will bring home the reality that someone has died. And gestures like that, I think, are really important. Again, in Orthodox tradition, we have memorial services to pray for the soul of the person who's died, and as a consolation to the survivors. And we do that on the third day, the ninth day, the 40th day, the 6 month anniversary that someone has passed, and on the annual anniversary thereafter. So there's this sort of progressive stepping, honoring kind of the time of grief and helping people work through it, and to process grief in little chunks, which is a very healthy way to do it. We can't express all of the rage, all of the frustration, all of the grief that's in us all at once. And very well, I think it was Robert Bly himself back in Iron John, or one
Iron
of his,
John.
yeah, or in one of his other books. But he said men trade chunks of grief in order to get their hearts back, and men have a
Mm.
lot of trouble with grief.
Mm.
And I think sort of the anger phase that's mentioned a lot in the manosphere nowadays. 30 years ago in men's work, they were all dealing with grief and sorrow. And I think ultimately it's all tied up with a sense of loss, that they're
Yep.
just emphasizing another aspect of it, because nowadays it's not cool for men to cry. So, but we can be angry. Men are allowed to be lusty, and we're allowed to be angry. So we're going to be angry
Mm-hmm.
here, and that's how we're going to deal with our feelings. And that, because that's all that's left for men to feel. Okay, don't get me off on that one. But to ritualize and to do something with your grief. Um, Carl Jung says, and psychologically speaking, uh, our subconscious or our unconscious mind doesn't really distinguish between a ritual action and a real action. This is why for those of us who are Christian, we can have something like the Lord's Supper or the Eucharist, where we can say,
Right.
this bread and wine is the body and blood of Christ, so that we can say,
Yes.
we can do it symbolically without having to do it literally.
Yes.
And so what we want to do is we want to find something meaningful that we can do in a ritual manner, that is a way of processing or acknowledging grief or
Mm-hmm.
honoring the person who has died.
Mm-hmm.
George's example of a toast, absolutely beautiful. Other
Yep.
things, visiting the cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
especially on significant days, the birthday of the person who died, the death day, uh, Christmas, New Year's, their favorite holiday, the day of the Super Bowl, if they were a great fan, do something like that. And don't just go visit the grave. Uh, very great tradition in Orthodox countries is you always take alcohol, you know, and you have a shot of vodka or ouzo or whatever your liquor of choice is, you know, and you pour a little on the grave too, you know, for the person who's died, you know, let them share that. And little gestures like that can be good. Last example, I had my father and my sister are buried in Texas, in the town where I grew up, and I don't get down there very often. And about 12 years ago, I had opportunity to spend some time there, and I decided I needed to do something because I was still really pissed off at my sister. And even though Dad died when I was 8, I still had, you know, lingering feelings that I hadn't really processed through, that just come up now and again, and that's normal. So I devised this ritual. I went out by myself. I went to the dollar store or the Goodwill or someplace like that, and I bought this huge, big, long butcher knife. It's a huge, big knife, and I had taken some small little trinkets that were meaningful to me, and I figured would be meaningful to my sister and my dad. And I bought a 6-pack of, it actually was Lone Star beer. For you native Texans, there's the national beer of Texas. If you're honest with yourself, it's absolute rot gut and swill. In fact, no other time would I ever drink this stuff. You know, craft beer or better for me. Thank you very much. Life is too short for swill. But my dad drank Lone Star. So I bought a 6-pack of that, and I went out to the cemetery, and I prepared several things to say about what I really felt. And it wasn't just schmaltzy, oh, Dad, I love you. Oh, Dad, I miss you. No, why the hell did you abandon me when I was 8 years old and I needed my father? You know, I felt fucking guilty my whole life because why did you abandon? I wasn't good enough for you. Is that what it was? Because that's what I felt.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I was brutally honest with myself. And I knelt down on the grave and I read this thing out, and the tears poured out of my eyes. And I took the giant butcher knife and I stabbed the gravesite with both hands, opened up a hole in the ground, put in the little trinkets that I had taken, and then poured Lone Star beer into the hole to seal it up. And then I went and did the same thing for my sister. Why did you waste
Wow.
your goddamn life? We loved
Wow.
you. We were there for you, you know, and you threw it all away and you went and worked for those blankety blanks, you know. You know what you did to the rest of us? How could you be so fucking selfish to think you
Yeah.
could take your life like this? Stab the ground again. Very angry gesture. I think I broke the handle on the knife that time. Put the little trinkets in, opened a second, took a sip, poured the rest of the beer into the grave. Do you know what?
Hmm.
Cleaned up a lot of the mental and emotional baggage I'd had with Dad and Marcia. It really did. It took me 40 years to figure it out, but I figured out I needed to do something. And for me, that's a little elaborate, but you find what's meaningful to you. I remember one year I had made a fire in the backyard in the fire pit, and it was the anniversary of Dad's death. I don't know what I was doing burning in January because he died on January 24th.
Hmm.
But I remember taking a log and beating the hell out of the fire in a furious, blind rage and cut the man out
Hmm.
for several minutes, and then realized what an absolute idiot and fool I was, and went from being furious to actually kind of laughing uncontrollably. And I remember falling down on the ground and laughing. But it was an emotional release, and it was honest. And I found some physical gesture that I could do that would process and allow me to deal with a chunk of the grief. And so ritual is really important. And like I say, it doesn't have to be big or extravagant. You know, a lot of people like to write letters to mom, you know, who passed away. Do that, you know, set it on fire or bury it in the ground, or I don't know. Get together on her birthday and share a bottle of her favorite wine. Um, you know, anything like that. But to do the gesture, to do the ritual, is doing something. And it is a physical gesture and act that you can embody yourself, that will pull the grief out of you, that you can pour feeling into and allow you to act. Because very often with grief, we feel helpless. He's dead. What could I possibly do now? Well, you can still do something. And for those of us who are Christians, prayer is always a path where there is no path. But sometimes, and this is why, like in good Catholic and Orthodox tradition, why we very often light candles and put them in church. It's a simple gesture, but it's doing something, and it allows us to do something with our grief.
Yes.
And so any little gestures like that, if every time you walk into a church for the next year, you light a candle in memory of the persons who have died and for whom you're grieving, you will, over the course of the year, substantially alleviate the feelings and the grief associated with that. I promise you that it will happen.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I am a candle burner, and whenever I go and I see any kind of altar with candles burning in it, I honestly, I think about the people's grief, I think about the people's love, and I think how significant that is. I know I used to live across the street from a cemetery, and I used to do my walks in the cemetery, and if I did one lap within this, it was huge. One lap in the cemetery was about a half mile. So 2 laps was 1 mile, 4 laps was 2 miles, and do that early in the morning. And I got to know the graves on the periphery pretty darn well. Almost, okay, here comes this one, and I see this certain one. And I would see at different times a year trinkets and stuffed animals and different things on graves. I'd see candles burning some mornings, and not on the next morning. I was quietly walking, and I saw people talking to gravestones, and I know exactly what they were doing. And I learned a lot by doing my daily walks inside of a cemetery. And it was absolutely amazing. It was eye-opening, and I just saw a lot of ritual that was working so well for those people. I could just see them settling spiritual, psychological, and soul matters by talking to the gravestone, talking to the husband, talking to the father, talking to the deceased son or daughter. And I learned so much just in those few years of walking in a cemetery. I think that's amazing. I'm a big believer in having a home altar of, even if it's a shelf with an icon of Christ and maybe pictures of departed ones and lighting candles. I'm a huge believer in that. And I do believe that lighting those candles is pleasing to the Lord. I think it's almost like a prayer, so to speak.
Yeah, it is a prayer. It attends our prayer. And one of the nice things about lighting a candle is that it is a whole offering that is completely consumed. And it does nothing other than remember the departed, accompany our prayer, and make beautiful the temple or your home altar. So it's used up completely. There's nothing left at the end. So it's a total kind of offering as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I see there's a number of interesting comments and questions here in the in the chat. I see. Yes, first for Dimitris, no, I am not of Greek ancestry. Butler is the whole of my last name, not Butleropoulos or Butlerides. My people are French, Irish, and Native American. I am a convert to Orthodoxy. Yeah, and yes, John, sacrificing virgins is right out. Although, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is going to be more from my men's work, and this is not necessarily a Christian practice, and so I don't recommend it. But I think if you offered a little of your own blood over someone's grave, that might be a really powerful thing and meaningful to some men. Okay. Yeah, no, we do not offer anybody else's blood. No, we cannot do that. But offering our own in some respect, yeah. And this is why even, if you're athletically minded, this is why I am running this race in memory of my father who died of cancer. Something like that. You're giving effort, you're giving sweat,
Sweat.
you're giving sweat, and you're giving pain. Running equals pain in my mind. So you're offering up your own pain and processing your grief in memory of someone else. That's why those kinds of things are very powerful too. There's all kinds of ways in which we can process it. But again, the ritual requires physical activity and enactment. Now, let me see. We say the word death because, as Teddy asked, because death is, by definition, the separation of the soul and the body. We cease to be fully integrated persons, and to be human means that we are incarnate souls. And so whenever that union is broken, something substantial happens, and that's how we define death. Okay, so that's simply a definitional thing. The differences between Eastern Russian and Greek Orthodoxy. The Russians drink vodka and speak Russian. The Greeks drink ouzo and speak Greek. The Romanians drink tsika and speak Romanian. I drink tequila and speak English. Apart from that, it's exactly the same faith and the same practice. Differences in music and culture. That's all. Nothing else. That's that. It's good. It's very good. Someone asked earlier also too, I hold this in the back of my mind, a very early question concerned exorcisms. I don't mind speaking to that. Let me see. What is my opinion on them? Well, I do them frequently enough, so I'm kind of, it's an ordinary everyday practice for me. Anytime someone enters the church to join the church, we first make them a catechumen, and that starts out with 4 prayers of exorcism to cast out any unclean or malign spirits they may have lurking in their hearts. And so that's an ordinary practice. Everybody gets the exorcisms when they come into the church, so I do them frequently enough. Hollywood has skewed most people's opinion of what that's like. We expect something dramatic or theatrical or whatnot. Even watching exorcisms being done in monasteries in Europe, I've seen nothing more than what we would call a hysterical woman. Nothing really wild. And what I always see, even in more extreme cases like that, people typically calm down after a little while. I remember in one case, some woman was dragged to the church. It was in Romania, to one of the great monasteries up in Moldavia and Bukovina. And she didn't want to come into the church. She had a bunch of women dragging her in. I don't speak Romanian well enough to know what she was saying, but she clearly didn't want to be there. And the priest came out with his stole and his book in his hand cross and began reading the prayers over her. And she eventually calmed down, and by the end was weeping quietly. And that appeared to be all that was needed. So, they're nothing big or weird or anything like that. And sort of for ordinary ones, if there were someone with a much more serious issue, spiritually or psychologically or anything, I know my limits well enough to know when to refer someone to better authority. And I've never had to refer anybody for spiritual issues like that to date. Thank God, I've not encountered, that kind of malignant evil. But even people come to confession where they're clearly depressed, or clearly have anxiety issues, or have clearly some other psychological problem. I'm willing to refer and to say, don't abandon confession. I said, go get yourself a good therapist, because this is an emotional issue, and bring what you learn in therapy back to the confessional, because when we join the psychological with the spiritual together, healing comes much more thoroughly and much more quickly. But
Yes.
what you're describing is beyond my ability to handle, and you need a therapist. So go get one. I've got some recommendations for you.
Okay. I dated a woman. I dated a woman over 30 years ago, a Greek gal, whose father passed away, and the mother wore black.
Mm-hmm.
as as their tradition, stated. And their tradition was that the mother would wear black until the end of the calendar year.
Oh,
Wear it every day. And Greek Orthodox, and on the first day of the new year, the mother had the opportunity to reach into her closet and wear colored clothing again, pastel, primary colors. But she didn't. She reached in her closet and pulled out black. And she wore black. This is an older, an old Greek mama.
Yep.
She wore black every day until the day she died, and then was buried in black. But she was in a symbolic state of mourning for her husband, who she was married to for 40 years.
Yes.
And I will never forget that as long as I live.
Yeah.
She chose black every day until the day she died.
Yeah. I have known instances of that myself.
Yeah.
And it's respectable. I can have respect for that. And for those who are not Orthodox, in Orthodoxy, at least in the old countries and traditional Orthodox cultures, should a spouse die, it's not as common to remarry as it is in the West. See, in the West, marriage was always considered a contract. Even the marriage ceremony, do you take this man? Do you take this woman? I do. You exchange vows. It was a contract. So if one party to the contract dies, you are free to enter into a new contract. You can get married. The Orthodox never conceived of marriage as a contract, and marriage is always kind of eternal and forever. And so very often in traditionally minded Orthodox people will not remarry if their spouse dies. I can't, as a priest, I can't have two wives. So should my wife die, I will have to remain single for the rest of my days. So, that's it.
Yeah. I noticed that from the tradition that I came from, which is Russian Orthodox, I remember so many people literally saying about deceased people, may her memory be eternal. May his memory be eternal.
Yes.
And that was drilled into my head.
Yes.
Either memory be eternal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's often said. I've sang it way too many times lately. And it means may their memory be eternal to God. Not that may the rest of us here on earth always remember, Uncle John or whomever, but that the person always abide in God's memory and in God's knowledge is what we're asking for. And it's a standard hymn. And if you grow up in an Orthodox church, whenever the choir starts singing Viechnaya Pamyat or Eonim Nimi, I'm surprised the Romanian escapes me at the moment. The waterworks can come on, because it's just one of those things that just gets your heart every time. And way too much Viechnaya Pamyat for me lately. Yeah.
All right, so here's a question, a general question about Orthodox church services or the Mass. A Coptic church just opened up near me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the Coptic church, it's 3 to 4 hours long. 3 to 4 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
For those that are not familiar with Orthodoxy, how long is your worship?
The evening service for Vespers, for a daily service with no big commemoration or anything, is 25 to 30 minutes. Great Vespers on Saturday night or for a major feast will run about 45 minutes. The Sunday liturgy, Mass, Eucharistic service at my church typically takes an hour and a half. I preach for about 15 minutes, distribution of communion, because last Sunday I had a nice crowd. I had about 150 people in church. So I have a deacon, so that, cuts it in half. But still, distribution of communion takes a while. But about an hour and a half on a Sunday. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what those cops do for 3 to 4 hours. I really don't. And God bless them that, that they can last that long. I think my feet would give out before then. And
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder, even in Orthodox services, if the choir is singing too slowly, I think the angels get bored, and I wonder if God dozes off sometimes on us.
How do you prepare communion in the Orthodox Church?
Communion is in Orthodoxy we use leavened bread. Actually, there is a discrepancy between the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John's Gospel as to when Christ was crucified. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus eats the Passover meal with his disciples, and so Good Friday is the first day of Passover. In John's Gospel, that's not so. In John's Gospel, Christ dies on the cross on the preparation for the Passover, when all of the lambs are being slaughtered in the Jerusalem temple, so that the symbolism of Christ's suffering and death parallels the Passover lamb. And so in Luke's Gospel, the Last Supper is the last regular meal before Passover begins and would have leavened bread. And so I have a loaf of bread with a special stamp stamped in the top of it that has a big square representing Jesus. And in about a 30-minute ceremony before the real ceremony begins, I cut a large cube of bread out of that loaf and use that for communion. And there's a whole lot more to it, but that's it in a nutshell. So then the cube of bread is broken up at communion time. I cut it up into small pieces. The small pieces go into the chalice of wine, and communion is then distributed by a spoon to everyone, so that everyone receives both body and blood of Christ. And
So it's not distributed individually. They're not taking the bread and then taking the wine. They're taking them both.
together, yes. In Catholic practice, this would be called intinction. Be the
Right.
same. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And in Protestant churches, I mean, sometimes they take, they have like little, I don't know, sometimes it looks like croutons. Sometimes it looks like just a broken up piece of bread.
Mm-hmm.
Catholic Church, of course, they're taking a host.
Yes. Yeah. From, as I was saying earlier, I cut a cube of bread out of a larger loaf. There are additional loaves for commemoration of various saints and the living and the departed, which I also use and arrange all these particles very nicely on the paten, on the discos, on the plate that holds the bread. And so all of the leftover bread that is not used for communion is cut up into pieces. And then in Russian practice, after someone comes forward for communion from the priest, they'll go off to the side and receive a piece of the blessed bread and maybe a little sip of wine. And the purpose of that is to clean your palate after you receive communion, so that no particles of the body and blood of Christ remain in your mouth that you might cough or sneeze or accidentally spit out. So it's to make sure everything gets swallowed. In Greek practice, the extra bread is distributed at the end of the service as a blessing to everybody. And in my congregation, we were always on the lookout for visitors and new folk and catechumens who are not yet allowed to communion. We have 9 catechumens at the moment, and amazing, I've got another half dozen or so young men who are looking to join the church. We've got another wave of these young men coming to Orthodoxy again. It's a beautiful thing. But the congregants will see, oh, there's a new person, and someone will invariably take them a piece of the bread at, just as a share, in this It's communion, but it's just a blessing. So you can have this too. And sometimes I'll talk with visitors after this. Everybody was bringing me bread. I had a handful. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with it. And someone finally said, eat it. So I'm kind of full now, Father. And I said, well, that's all right. We've got coffee hour. There's more to eat over here. You won't go away hungry. Demetrius wants to know what my opinion about reincarnation. I don't have one. It doesn't exist. Let me see. John is going to see the painted monasteries in Romania. Yeah, I have been there. That's where I was. I saw Bukovina and Moldovice and Sucevice and Putna. I had a long time at Putna. Varatek, So what was the big one where St. Petrus Velchkovsky was? Starts with a V. Um, I saw Voronets. I saw. Oh gosh, it's escaped me. It'll come to me later. But yes, I was very privileged to visit about 10 or 12 of them when I was up there. They're unspeakably beautiful. They really are. And buildings that had been prayed in for centuries have a certain character to them. I don't care, if they're Christian or Jewish or Hindu, when men and women have opened their hearts to God in the same place for centuries. T.S. Eliot has something in Four Quartets about that, about praying in an old English Gothic church. He says, in a place that has been prayed in. There's a beautiful line about that, about just the depth and authenticity of prayer that's possible there, that may not
Yeah.
be available in a new building or in something synthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen, for those that are Protestant, Catholic churches have kneelers.
Yes.
Right? Kneelers. And I remember being in some old Catholic churches where some of the kneelers had indentations like where the wood was worn,
Mm-hmm.
and you just got goosebumps because that those kneelers were preyed on
Yes.
for
centuries.
decades,
Yes.
centuries.
Yes.
Amazing.
It really brings home the sense that you are part of something much bigger than you realize. And to be part of something really, really big and deep and old like that is it's really quite moving. Forgive me, George. I do need to get off at 8. I have another appointment. Is there anything else we'd like to do, or any place else we would like to go?
I think we covered a lot, and this is basically part 2 of I don't know how many parts we're going to have. We're going to keep going until we exhaust all the topics in the future. So,
or the patience of your kind audience,
Yes.
I'm happy to do this. This is a lot of fun. If people are willing to listen to this kind of conversation, I'm more than happy to carry on with it.
Well, there's 2 things I ask of you before we end the stream tonight. First thing is, how can people find you if you want to be found?
I don't mind being found. They can find my congregation. My church is Holy Transfiguration Orthodox Church in Livonia, Michigan. Orthodox Livonia, Livonia, orthodoxlivonia.org will take you to my church. We're also on YouTube, so the services are live streamed on YouTube and recorded, so you can see how my worship is, and to see if I preach a decent message. Now and again, I actually preach a decent sermon. And I am on Instagram, but I'm not there under my name. I am on Instagram under Average to Alpha, AVG numeral 2 ALPHA, because that's where I want to help all men get from being from average to alpha. And so you can find me there.
Excellent. That's great. And then one last thing.
Uh-huh.
Leave by giving us all a blessing.
You want the blessing?
We want the blessing.
You want the blessing. Yeah, I'm going to put both feet flat on the floor because this is serious stuff. And thank you, Paul. Yeah, just a quick blessing, which is unique among the Orthodox. We tend to go on and on about such things, but that's all right. A quick blessing to you and yours. The blessing of the Lord and his mercy be upon you through his grace and love of mankind, always, now, and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen, amen. And thank you all for your patience. Forgive me if in any way I have given offense. That's not my purpose to be here to offend you. Sometimes I speak bluntly, but I try to do so because I'm concerned for the truth. And sometimes I speak vehemently because I want to get a point across with emphasis, and I hope in no way that I've caused offense.
Thank you for being with us tonight, and we are going to do it again.
Very good.
I'll let you know.
Forgive me. I got to get out of here. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.
There's how.
All right. So there we had Father Michael Butler, Orthodox priest of Holy Transfiguration Orthodox Church in Livonia, Michigan. And he was with us last month. And I think we'll do a series. It seems like that this series seems to be received very well by this audience. I appreciate that. And I thought it was so appropriate to have Father Butler on here as we spent 3 nights talking about bodybuilding, 3 great golden age bodybuilders. And the first hour of our conversation was about bodybuilding. He is an amateur bodybuilder, 5'10", 190 pounds or something like that. During competition, he leans out at 171, but I think he said he wants to get bigger and stronger, and he's working with a strength coach right now, and he's in the gym 7 days a week. So that's pretty darn cool. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. We're going to do it again, and I will let you know when he's on again so you can prepare questions like you did tonight. And make sure to check out his Instagram, average, AVG, the number 2, and then the word alpha, average to alpha. And give him some encouragement. He spends his life, he has spent his entire calling and career encouraging others. And let's not forget to encourage those that have dedicated their whole lives to encouraging others. And thank you. Out of all the choices you had, you've spent a few minutes with me. And for that, I am thankful. I'll see you again soon. Thank you for being here.